Amen. Well, I want to bring you guys a Truth Talk today. And just a reminder that Truth Talks oftentimes ask more questions than they answer. And Truth Talks are meant to just kind of highlight a subject. So today we're going to ask the question, what does the Bible say about addiction? What does the Bible say about addiction? The reality is the majority of the population is an addict. Addicted to something. It's everywhere. You might not be addicted to prescription drugs, to cocaine, or to alcohol, but you are addicted to coffee, to candy, to social media, to video games, or just plain addicted to your phone. The majority of the population is an addict. 10 years ago, who would have ever thought about the fact of taking your phone to the bathroom? The phone was on a base or a cord. Now, if somebody ends up in the restroom without their phone, they're disgusted. I forgot my phone. I want to take you to the Bible. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 12, Paul says, and he quotes the secular poet of the day, "You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you," Paul says. Notice that Paul quotes the carnal poet. He's relating to them in the day. Can we just be loud and clear? Addiction of any kind is not good. Paul says it's not good for you. The word addiction is negative, not positive. Of course, an addiction to cocaine is worse than an addiction to chocolate. But addiction is not good. Phone addictions are not good. Why? God has made us to be still, to know that he is God. We see that in Psalm 46:10. We live in a society where we have become addicted to noise, addicted to busyness, and we have taken the bait and have called these addictions as normal and as okay. But we've relegated ourselves to busyness. We've relegated ourselves to an addict, to where we can't hear and know God. Paul continues in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 12, if you want to reference later, he says, even though, quote, I'm allowed to do anything, end quote, I must not become a slave to anything. The issue with addiction, church, is the issue of slavery. The addiction comes into our life to control us, to literally, from a psychological standpoint, put a desire that produces repeated, uncontrollable behavior, and many times, even though it's illogical or it's even harmful. But these addictions come into our life and they're given to us in such a way that we're to buy it hook, line, and sinker, that it's normal and it's stunting our spiritual growth. Addiction becomes a god that we worship, a master that we serve. It's something that demands my behavior. Facebook, Instagram, and you name the rest because I can't. The phone, the addiction. Galatians 5:1, Paul says it was for freedom that Christ has set you free. John chapter 8, verse 34, Jesus replied, I tell you the truth, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. So if the Son sets you free, then you'll be free indeed. Church, Jesus wants his people free of addiction. That we are not controlled, that we are not manipulated, that we are not repeatedly doing things and it controlling every aspect of who we are. Listen, it's not wrong to drink coffee, but are you a slave to it? It's not wrong to eat chocolate, but are you a slave to it? It's not wrong to play online video games on your phone, but are you a slave to it? It's not wrong to have a background noise, TV and radio playing, but are you a slave to it? Do you know how to be still and know that he is God? Do you know how to hold a conversation with your kids? Do you know how to drive in the car without everyone being on their device? Do you know how to function, American church, outside of your addictions? 1 Corinthians chapter 6, Paul is addressing these types of themes with the Corinthian church. 4 chapters later, he comes back to the same thing. He says, you say, quote, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, quote, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. Church, addiction creates pathways in your brain. Addictions release chemicals in your brain? What about our health? What about our relationships around us? What about the call of God in our life? What about kingdom living that's been altered because of the addictions that we face? Remember, just because it isn't sin doesn't mean it's not good. Paul mocked them. You might be able to do it, but is it good for you? That's all for this week's Truth Talk, but there's more to be found in the best-selling book of all times, written over a span of 1,600 years by over 40 authors in 3 languages and on 3 continents. The Bible is the truth. Amen.